What is this badge? Maternity leave flex? The pink badge dangled in front of my eyes, and laughter erupted across the entire registration desk. I stood there adjusting my baby bump, feeling the heat rise in my face. The conference volunteer had given me this badge expecting parent priority seating. But everyone here seemed to think it was a joke. Dude, is this a tech event or a daycare center? Someone called out and people walked away laughing toward their booths. My hand went to the badge. I could have taken it off. But why should I? I'm pregnant. I came here to learn. Still, exhaustion filled my breath and that old fear settled in my chest. Maybe this world wasn't meant for me. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. I adjusted the badge beneath my jacket and started walking toward Hall B, where the morning keynote was scheduled. The lobby was crowded, developers, investors, tech journalists, everyone absorbed in their own world. I was making my way through the crowd when suddenly someone collided with me. My bag fell, papers scattered across the floor. Sorry, I said, bending down, but then a scent hit me. Sharp, commanding, pure alpha pheromones that filled the air instantly. My omega instinct woke up immediately. My throat tightened and my heartbeat quickened. I lifted my gaze and looked up. A man stood there, tall, sharp jawline, steel gray eyes, black turtleneck. Watson. At first I didn't recognize his name, but his presence was so strong that ignoring him was impossible. He was looking at me, but his gaze shifted from my face and landed directly on my badge, which had slipped out slightly from under my jacket. His expression changed, first neutral, then something serious. Are you okay? He asked, and there was authority in his voice, but also a strange concern. I nodded quickly, gathering my papers. Watson also bent down and picked up a folder, handing it to me. This conference, is it comfortable for you? He asked, again, this time with more intent, as if he genuinely wanted to know. My heart began beating faster. Who was this person asking me such personal questions? I'll manage, I said, my tone slightly defensive. He paused for a second as if wanting to say something, but then simply nodded. Make sure you do, he said, and walked ahead. But as he left, he looked at my badge one more time, a long, thoughtful look. And in that look was something I couldn't understand. Surprise? Anger? Or perhaps something else? I stood there, his scent still lingering in the air, cedar wood and something sharp, commanding, and my omega brain was screaming, who was that? But I was running late for the keynote. So I composed myself, picked up my bag and headed toward Hall B. As soon as I entered, the lights were dim and a silhouette appeared on stage. I found my priority seat, front row, specially marked. I sat down and looked toward the stage. An announcement was made and the lights came on. And when I saw the speaker, my breath stopped. It was the same man. That alpha. That Watson. The revelation hit me like a physical force. My fingers gripped the armrest of my chair as I tried to process what I was seeing. Watson Reed. The man who had just helped me pick up my papers in the lobby was now standing on stage, bathed in spotlight, commanding the attention of hundreds of people. How had I not recognized him? But then again, why would I? I was just trying to survive this conference, not memorize the faces of tech industry titans. I sank lower in my seat, suddenly hyper-aware of everything about myself. The pink badge that was still slightly visible despite my attempts to hide it. My oversized hoodie that did little to conceal my growing belly. The way I didn't fit in with the sleek, polished crowd around me. My mind raced with questions. Had he recognized me when we collided? Was that why he'd been so concerned? Or was he always like that, personally invested in every random person he encountered? The thought seemed absurd even as it formed. Men like Watson Reed didn't have time for random encounters. They certainly didn't bend down to help strangers pick up papers. Yet and now he was up there, about to address this entire conference, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just shifted in my carefully controlled world. I watched as he adjusted the microphone, his movements confident and practiced. The crowd settled into an expectant silence. Even from where I sat, I could see the intensity in his eyes as he scanned the audience. When his gaze swept past my section, I instinctively looked down, not wanting to make eye contact. Not wanting to be seen, but I could feel it. That pull, That inexplicable awareness that comes with being in the presence of a powerful alpha when you're an omega. My body recognized what my mind was still trying to deny. This wasn't just any speaker. This wasn't just any alpha. This was someone who had already marked himself in my consciousness with a single brief encounter. And I had no idea what to do with that information. Around me, people were settling in, pulling out notebooks and tablets, preparing to absorb whatever wisdom Watson Reed was about to impart. I fumbled with my own notebook, my hands slightly shaky. The woman next to me gave me a curious glance, her eyes flickering briefly to my badge before she looked away. I was used to those looks by now, the judgment, the curiosity, the barely concealed disdain. The house lights dimmed further, leaving only the stage illuminated. Watson stood there perfectly composed, perfectly in control. Everything about him radiated power and confidence, and yet, I couldn't forget that moment in the lobby when he'd looked at my badge with concern, when his voice had softened just slightly as he'd asked if I was comfortable. Who was the real Watson Reed? The commanding CEO on stage, or the man who'd taken a moment to show genuine concern for a struggling stranger? Maybe he was both. Maybe that was what made him so dangerous, the ability to be powerful and compassionate simultaneously. To command attention while also paying attention to the smallest details. I straightened in my seat, determined to focus on why I was actually here. I needed this conference. I needed the connections, the knowledge, the opportunity. Whatever had just happened in the lobby, whatever strange awareness was humming through my body right now, I couldn't let it distract me from my goals. I had a baby coming. I had a future to build. I couldn't afford to be distracted by a powerful alpha, no matter how compelling his presence might be. But even as I told myself this, even as I opened my notebook and prepared to take notes, I knew something had changed. The conference I'd walked into this morning, the one where I'd been mocked and marginalized, suddenly felt different. And standing at the center of that change was Watson Reed. Good morning, I'm Watson Reed, founder and CEO of NeuralShift. Hearing his full name and title made my heart sink. Watson Reed, the man who had just been helping me gather my papers outside, was the organizer of this entire event, the biggest alpha in the whole industry. I pressed myself deeper into my seat, suddenly conscious of everything: my pink badge that was still partly visible, my baggy hoodie, my baby bump. Had he recognized me? He must have. But did it matter to him? Perhaps that was why he'd been so personally engaged with me outside. Watson was confident on stage, commanding. His voice echoed through the hall, clear and authoritative. This conference is built on one principle: innovation without exclusion, he was saying. But when he said this, his gaze swept through the audience for just a second and landed on me. Only a second. But I could feel it. I tried to force myself to focus. This was just coincidence. Nothing more. But my omega side was restless. His scent was still fresh in my mind. But do you really think this industry is truly inclusive? Watson asked the audience, an edge creeping into his tone. Silence fell over the hall. People started looking at each other. Because I don't think so, he said. And now there was controlled anger in his voice, restrained but crystal clear. What he said next completely defied my expectations. Last night, when I met with my organizing team, I learned that our volunteer staff made some exclusionary decisions. Minor decisions, they claimed, but minor decisions create major impact. He paused deliberately, and this morning, I personally encountered a participant who was directly facing the consequences of those decisions. My heart pounded hard. Was he talking about me? I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. Around me, people began whispering, confused and curious. We claim this space is for everyone, Watson continued. But when expecting parents, disabled individuals, or marginalized identities feel uncomfortable here, when they're given badges and then those badges are mocked, then these are just hollow words. I sat up straighter in my seat. Now I was certain. He was definitely talking about me. But he wasn't calling me out publicly, just addressing the issue. So I'm making a decision right now, Watson announced. And now the hall was filled with pin-drop silence. This conference will undergo immediate restructuring. New accessibility protocols will be implemented, and any volunteer or staff member involved in exclusionary behavior, they will be reviewed. Shockwaves rippled through the hall. Phones came out, cameras started flashing. Tweets were happening in real time on social media. I just stared at Watson, this alpha who was publicly challenging his own event. And part of me wondered, why? Just for one incident? Or something more? The keynote ended with thunderous applause, but I remained in my seat feeling somewhat overwhelmed. People began standing up, ready for networking. I was about to stand as well when suddenly a staff member approached me. "Excuse me, are you Franco?" she asked, holding a tablet. I was surprised. "Yes, but Mr. Reed has sent a message for you. He would like to meet with you when your schedule allows, in the private lounge. This is your access card." She handed me a key card. I was confused and nervous. What was happening? But my Omega instinct was telling me something different. Trust him. Go. I took the key card. "Thank you," I said. The staff member left and I stood there staring at the card. Should I go? I didn't have any sessions for the next hour. So I made my decision. I headed toward the private lounge, my heart filled with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. The walk to the private lounge felt longer than it probably was. My mind kept replaying Watson's words on stage. The way he'd essentially called out his own organization for failing me. It was unprecedented. CEOs didn't do things like this. They didn't publicly acknowledge failures, especially not for a single participant's experience. Yet Watson had done exactly that. I clutched the keycard tighter as I made my way through the quieter corridors of the conference center. The noise and bustle of the main halls faded behind me, replaced by hushed elegance. The carpet here was thicker, the lighting more refined. This was clearly a space reserved for VIPs, for people who mattered in this world of technology and innovation. And somehow, inexplicably, I had been granted access to it. My Omega instincts were firing on all cylinders now, warning me and encouraging me in equal measure. The rational part of my brain kept insisting this was just a professional courtesy, that Watson was simply being thorough in his response to the incident. But the deeper, more primal part of me recognized something else in his actions. Something that went beyond mere professional responsibility. I found the elevator that would take me to the top floor. As the doors closed and I began ascending, I caught my reflection in the polished metal. I looked exactly like what I was. A tired, pregnant Omega trying to make it in a world that hadn't been designed with people like me in mind. My hand unconsciously moved to my belly, a protective gesture I'd developed over the past months. What was I doing? Meeting privately with Watson Reed? I didn't know him. I didn't know what he wanted. For all I knew, this was some kind of damage control exercise, a way to smooth over the bad publicity before it could spread. But then I remembered the way he'd looked at me in the lobby, the genuine concern in his voice, the careful way he'd handed me my folder, making sure I had everything before he left. Those weren't the actions of someone doing damage control. Those were the actions of someone who actually cared. The elevator chimed softly, announcing my arrival. The doors slid open to reveal a short hallway with a single door at the end. The private lounge. I stepped out, my footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. I stood in front of the door for a moment, the keycard in my hand. This was it. I could still turn back. I could go back to the main conference, attend my sessions, pretend this morning had never happened, keep my head down and get through this weekend the way I'd planned. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was hope, or maybe it was just that my Omega instincts were absolutely certain that whatever waited beyond this door was important. I swiped the keycard. The lock clicked open with a soft sound. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, not knowing that this single decision would change everything. The private lounge was on the top floor of the conference center, quiet and secluded. When I swiped the keycard and entered, the atmosphere was completely different. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, and a wall-length window offering a full city view. And there, standing by the window, was Watson. Black blazer, sleeves rolled up, a glass of water in his hand. As soon as I entered, he saw me and immediately stood up, setting the glass on a side table. "Franco," he said, speaking my name. It felt strange, so personal. "Come in. Please, have a seat." He gestured toward a comfortable couch. I slowly walked over and sat down, adjusting my baby bump. Watson also paused for a second before sitting in the chair opposite me as if confirming I was comfortable. Then he sat down too, leaning slightly forward. "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" he asked first, his tone concerned. His gaze went to my baby bump once, then back to my eyes. No, I said quickly, a bit defensive. Just a little awkward. I don't understand why I'm here. I mean, you're the conference founder and you're a participant who was mistreated by my team, Watson interrupted but gently. And you're here because you deserve to be. I needed to talk to you about something. He leaned forward slightly, placing his elbows on his knees. When I saw you this morning, saw your badge, and then saw that expression on your face, I got a reality check. I designed this event to be inclusive, Franco. All my policies, protocols, everything was built with that intention. But intentions aren't enough. There were serious flaws in implementation that I didn't see. You showed me those flaws. I listened, surprised. Was this an apology or an explanation? I want you to tell me, Watson continued. Honestly, from registration to the keynote, what happened? How did you feel? This was strange. A CEO was getting this personally involved with me, a random Omega participant, but there was no pretense in his eyes. He genuinely wanted to listen, so I told him the truth. The volunteers' laughter. The badge mockery. Is this a tech event or a daycare center? The seating arrangement where I got priority seating, but the judgmental stares I received getting to that seat, and that feeling that maybe I didn't belong here. Watson listened without interrupting. His jaw was tight as if he was controlling his anger. When I finished, he remained quiet for a while, processing. Then he spoke. That was wrong, completely unacceptable. And it won't happen again. I'll personally make sure of that. There was an intensity in his eyes that both frightened and comforted me. I want you, he continued, to stay for the weekend. As my guest, your accommodation will be upgraded. You'll have full access to every session. And if you need anything at any time, support, space, anything, you'll have it. My responsibility. I fell silent. This was too much. I don't understand, I said honestly. Why? Why are you doing so much for me? You changed the entire conference for one incident, and now this personal responsibility. Watson paused slightly, as if searching for the answer himself. Then he said slowly, because when I saw you, I saw a determination in you that I once had. Alone, trying to belong spaces that weren't built for you. And I don't want you to face what I faced. If I'd had someone's support back then, maybe things would have been very different. His scent changed slightly, becoming softer, vulnerable. My Omega brain was instantly reading it. Protectiveness, recognition, and something more. I appreciate it, I said carefully. I really do. But I don't want this to be pity. This isn't pity, Watson said firmly. This is connection, empathy, and maybe a bit of selfishness too, because I want to learn from you. Your perspective, your insights. They'll help me build better products. I looked at him. He was telling the truth. I could see it in his eyes. And my Omega instinct was telling me to trust him. But my logical brain was scared. All of this, it is so sudden, so intense. I'll think about it, I finally said. Watson nodded. Understanding. Take your time, he said. But the offer stays open. And Franco, thank you. Honestly, you taught me a lot today. I started to get up, but as I was heading toward the door, Watson called my name again. Franco? I stopped and turned back. If you ever at any time need anything, or just want to talk, message me, please. He pulled out his card and gave it to me. It had his personal number on it. I took the card, barely touching his fingers, and in that small touch there was a jolt. Static. Connection. I put the card in my pocket and walked out. But my heart was still racing. The door closed behind me with a soft click, and I stood in the hallway for a moment trying to steady my breathing. My hand was still in my pocket, fingers wrapped around Watson's card. The embossed lettering pressed against my palm, a tangible reminder that what had just happened was real. I made my way back to the elevator, my mind spinning. Everything Watson had said, every gesture, every look, it all felt too significant to be merely professional courtesy. But what else could it be? We'd literally just met this morning. A collision in a crowded lobby shouldn't lead to private meetings in exclusive lounges. It shouldn't lead to a powerful CEO personally ensuring my comfort for the rest of the weekend. Yet here I was, holding his personal number, feeling the lingering warmth of that brief touch. The elevator descended and I watched the floor numbers decrease. I needed to think clearly. I needed to separate what was actually happening from what my omega instincts were hoping was happening. Watson Reed was being kind. He was responsible. He was correcting a failure in his organization's system. That was all. Except the way he'd looked at me. The way his scent had softened when he talked about not wanting me to face what he'd faced. The way he'd paused before sitting down, making sure I was comfortable first. These weren't just professional gestures. These were personal, intimate. Even, I stepped out of the elevator and back into the bustling main corridor of the conference. The noise hit me like a wave. Conversations, laughter, the constant hum of networking and deal-making. I felt disconnected from it all, as if I'd just returned from another world entirely. My phone buzzed, a notification about the next session I'd planned to attend. I looked at the time. I had 15 minutes. Enough time to grab a coffee, compose myself, and try to focus on why I was actually here. But as I walked toward the coffee station, I couldn't stop thinking about Watson. About the offer he'd made, about the way he'd said my name, Franco, like it meant something. About the card burning a hole in my pocket. I ordered my coffee, decaf, pregnancy safe, and found a quiet corner to sit. I pulled out the card and looked at it properly for the first time. Simple, elegant design. Watson Reed, CEO, Neural Shift. And below that, handwritten, a personal mobile number. He'd written it himself. Recently, maybe right before I'd arrived at the lounge. My thumb traced over the numbers and I felt that pull again. That inexplicable awareness that something significant was unfolding, whether I was ready for it or not. The next morning, when I returned to the conference, the atmosphere was completely different. Changes were already visible. New signage had been installed about accessibility features, lactation rooms had been designated, and seating arrangements had been thoughtfully rearranged. I passed through the registration area, and this time the volunteer looked at me and genuinely smiled. "Good morning, Franco. Your priority seating is reserved in Hall C today. No jokes. No mockery. Just respect." When I reached Hall C, I saw that the first row had been specifically arranged with comfortable seating, extra space, cushioned chairs. Another participant was already sitting there, a wheelchair user. He saw me and smiled. "Looks like we got an upgrade," he said in a friendly tone. "Yes," I said, sitting down. "A lot of changes happened suddenly, because of Watson Reed," he said. "Yesterday he sent an email to all participants. An apology and information about new policies. It was honest. That's rare in the corporate world." I simply nodded. Hearing Watson's name made my heart beat a little faster. Since last night I'd been thinking about him, his words, his offer, and that connection I'd felt. The session began, AI Ethics in Healthcare. There were 3 speakers on the panel and the discussion was highly engaging. I was taking notes when I suddenly felt someone watching me. I glanced around the hall and Watson was there, sitting quietly in the back row, observing. His gaze met mine for just a second, then returned to the panel. But that 1 second was enough. My focus wavered slightly. After the session ended, as I was leaving, Watson approached me casually as if by coincidence. "How was the session?" he asked. Hands in his pockets, relaxed body language. "It was good," I said. "Especially when they discussed maternal health algorithms. So many systems completely ignore pregnant bodies, especially trans and non-binary pregnancies." Watson nodded, genuinely interested. "Have you personally experienced this?" I touched my baby bump instinctively. "Every day. Health apps, workplace systems, even pregnancy tracking apps. They all assume the user is female. When I'm an omega, trans-masculine, and pregnant. Nothing is designed for me." Understanding appeared in Watson's expression, along with something else, respect. "Have you ever thought," he said slowly, "about building your own product? An app or platform that specifically addresses this gap?" I laughed a little. "I've thought about it, but I'm just a freelance developer. I don't have the resources, funding, team, infrastructure." "I can provide the resources," Watson said, completely serious. "Direct. If you have the vision and actual plan, I'll support it. Incubation, funding, mentorship, whatever need." The offer was so sudden and significant that I couldn't respond for several seconds. You don't know me," I finally said. "Then why?" Such a big investment so quickly. Watson gestured toward a bench. Come. Sit. We both sat down in a slightly secluded corner. I don't know you, that's true, Watson admitted. But I know your thinking. Your perspective. And that's what the tech industry lacks most. I know many developers who can write brilliant code, but very few can translate lived experience into technology. You can do that. He paused, choosing his words carefully. And honestly, when I look at you, I'm reminded of myself. But I was alone. Nobody supported me in the beginning. I had to fight for everything. I don't want you to face that same struggle. His sense softened again, that vulnerable scent I'd noticed yesterday. And my omega side began responding automatically. My heartbeat quickened. My breathing became shallow. I became physically aware of his proximity. I took a small breath and stepped back slightly, creating space. I need to think about this, I said, feeling somewhat overwhelmed. This is all too much at once. Watson immediately nodded. Of course. I'm not pressuring you. Just putting the option in front of you. Whenever you're ready, let me know. We both sat in silence for a while. Comfortable silence. Then Watson said, Are you free during lunch break? I wanted to talk with you more. Informally, I looked at him. This was already becoming very personal. But something in me, maybe omega instinct, maybe curiosity, wanted to say yes. Yes, I said. I'm free. Watson smiled. Genuine, warm. Great. There's a quiet spot on the terrace. I'll wait for you there. And when he left, my heart was still racing. This didn't feel merely professional anymore. And I didn't know if I was ready to handle it or not. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. I attended another session on machine learning applications, but my mind kept drifting back to Watson, to his offer, to the way he'd looked at me when he talked about not wanting me to struggle alone. There was something in his tone, in his eyes, that went beyond professional mentorship. During the break between sessions, I found myself in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. I looked tired. The pregnancy was taking its toll, dark circles under my eyes, a certain heaviness in my features. My man went to my belly, feeling the slight movements inside. This baby was real. This responsibility was real. Could I afford to trust someone I'd just met, no matter how compelling he seemed? But then I remembered the changes I'd seen this morning, the respect in the volunteers' eyes, the comfortable seating, the other marginalized participants sitting beside me, finally given the space he deserved. Watson had done that, not with empty promises, but with immediate action. I splashed water on my face and dried it carefully. The lunch meeting was in 30 minutes. I had time to back out to send a polite message saying I couldn't make it. But even as the thought formed, I knew I wouldn't. Something was pulling me toward Watson Reed, and I was both terrified and exhilarated by it. I left the bathroom and headed toward the terrace, each step feeling significant. The conference center's architecture opened up as I climbed the stairs, moving from the crowded halls to quieter spaces. By the time I reached the terrace level, I was almost alone. The door to the terrace was glass, and through it I could see the setup Watson had mentioned. It was more intimate than I'd expected. A small garden area with string lights and comfortable seating, separated from the main terrace by strategically placed plants. And there, arranging something on a small table, was Watson. He looked up as I approached, and his face transformed with that genuine smile I was beginning to recognize. It made him look younger, less like the intimidating CEO and more like just a person. Someone who might understand what it felt like to be different, to struggle, to hope for something better. I pushed open the door and stepped onto the terrace. The city spread out below us like a promise. Whatever was about to happen, whatever conversation we were about to have, I knew it would change things. The only question was whether I was brave enough to let it. I reached the terrace during lunch break. There was a small garden set up, fairy lights, comfortable seating, and a city view. Watson was already there with 2 lunch boxes. Simple, healthy food. What's this? I asked, looking at the boxes. The conference catering had limited options, Watson said. So I asked my assistant to arrange something different. I hope this is okay. I customized the menu for you. Nutrients, pregnancy-safe ingredients. I was surprised and touched. You did this specifically for me? Yes, Watson said simply, as if it were obvious. Sit. We both sat and began eating. There was silence for a while. Comfortable, not awkward. Then Watson started talking. "Tell me," he said, "your baby's father, is he in the picture?" The question was direct and personal. I set down my fork. "No," I said. "He was just a mistake. One night, when he found out, he made it clear he didn't want to be involved. He even legally waived his rights." Watson nodded without judgment. "And your family? They're not supportive," I admitted. "When I told them I was trans, they practically disowned me. The pregnancy is something they can't even begin to accept. So I'm alone. Financially, emotionally." "That's why you're here," Watson said softly. "At the conference. Networking, looking for opportunity." "Yes," I said. "Freelancing keeps me afloat. But after the baby arrives, I need stability, proper income, benefits." This conference was my chance to make connections. Watson fell quiet, thinking. Then he said, "Franco, I want to tell you something. And I want you to listen seriously." I looked at him. His expression was intense. "At my company, Neural Shift, we're hiring assistant developers. Remote positions are available too. The benefits are comprehensive. Health insurance, parental leave, flexible hours. I want you to apply." I asked in surprise, "But I haven't even shown you a portfolio. How do you know that Talking to you told me everything," Watson interrupted. "Your thinking, your approach. These are the qualities I want in my team. And honestly, I'm not making this offer because I want to help you. I'm making it because you deserve it. And because I'm selfish, I want you at my company." There was an intensity in his eyes that made me both uncomfortable and excited. "Watson, this is too much, I know," he said. "But Franco, I'm not lying. I need you. Professionally. And," he paused, "personally as well." My heart stopped. "Personally?" Watson took a deep breath. "I want to be completely honest with you. Ever since I saw you, yesterday morning, when you were standing in that lobby, I felt something. A connection. Instinct. And I know this sounds crazy. We just met. But my alpha instinct, it recognizes you." My breath caught. This was what I'd been afraid to think about. "Watson," I said slowly, "I'm already in a very complicated situation. Pregnant. Alone. Struggling. I don't know if I can handle this." "I'm not expecting anything from you," Watson said quickly. "I just wanted to be honest. But this offer, the job offer, it's completely separate. Even if you reject me personally, the offer still stands. I want to make that clear." I fell silent, overwhelmed. So much was happening at once. I need time," I said. "I understand," Watson said. "Take all the time you need." We sat finishing our meal, but now there was tension in the silence. My omega brain was being pulled toward Watson, his scent, his presence. But my logical side was scared. This was all happening so fast. Could I trust this? Was it real or temporary? After lunch ended, we both returned to the conference area. But as I was heading to my session, I heard voices. 2 volunteers were whispering in a corner. "Watson Reed changed the entire conference overnight. It's all because of that pregnant Omega. Obviously something personal is going on. Who invests this much in a random participant? Maybe the baby is his. Who knows what drama is happening?" My heart sank. Rumors. They'd already started. I stood there listening. And the worst part, I was confused myself. Watson's behavior, it actually was abnormal. So personal, so invested. For a CEO, none of this was normal. Was it guilt, pity, or something real? I attended my session but couldn't focus. My mind kept asking, what should I do? Trust him or keep my distance? That evening I returned to my hotel room and silenced my phone. But an hour later there was a knock on the door. My heart raced. I opened the door. Watson was standing there. His appearance caught me off guard. He wasn't in his usual polished conference attire. Instead, he wore a simple sweater, his hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. The controlled CEO facade had cracked, revealing someone who looked genuinely distressed. "I've been calling," he said, his voice rough. "Why didn't you answer?" I stepped back, suddenly aware of how small my hotel room was, how intimate this felt. I needed space to think. "About the rumors," Watson said. It wasn't a question. He stepped inside without waiting for permission, and I let him. "I heard them too. The volunteers were reprimanded. But the damage is done." "Is it damage?" I asked, closing the door. Or is it the truth? Watson, we barely know each other. This intensity, this investment, it's not normal. People are right to question it. He turned to face me fully, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. You want to know why? The real reason? Yes, I whispered. Because when I saw you in that lobby being dismissed and mocked for something that should have been respected, I saw every moment of my own past. I was an orphan, Franco. I grew up in the system. I know what it's like to be invisible, to be treated as less than. When I built Neural Shift, I swore I'd create spaces where people like us belonged. And yesterday I failed. You showed me that failure. He moved closer, his scent wrapping around me. But it's more than that. When you looked at me, you didn't see the CEO or the success story. You saw a person. And when you spoke, you didn't perform or posture. You were just real. Do you know how rare that is in my world? My hands were shaking. So this is what? Gratitude, recognition, this is me, Watson said. Being honest about the fact that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. That every instinct I have is screaming at me to protect you, support you, be bare you. And I know it's fast. I know it's intense. But I'm not going to lie about it. The air between us felt electric. My omega instincts were overwhelming my logic, telling me to trust, to accept, to let myself be held by this alpha who seemed so desperately sincere. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice breaking. I can't afford another person who leaves. Watson's expression softened completely. Then let me prove I won't. Franco, I was looking for you. You ignored my calls. Watson's face showed concern. But something else too. Worry, maybe even hurt. I stood at the door, stopping him from entering immediately. How did you know I was here? I asked. Conference registration records, Watson said honestly. I know this seems like a privacy invasion, but I was worried. You suddenly started ignoring everything and I couldn't understand why. I took a deep breath. Come in, I said. Watson entered and I closed the door. We both stood in the room, maintaining an awkward distance. I heard the rumors, I said directly. People are saying you're so invested in me because this baby is yours. Watson's expression didn't change dramatically, but his scent tightened, controlled. And what do you think? He asked carefully. I don't know what to think, I admitted. We met yesterday, and suddenly you're so personally involved. Making offers, making confessions. None of this is normal, Watson. So I don't understand why. Watson took a step toward me, slowly. Franco, this baby isn't mine. We met yesterday, that's true. But when I saw you, when I talked with you, I found something I'd been searching for a long time. What? I asked, frustration and confusion mixing in my voice. Someone real, Watson said. Someone who doesn't pretend, who's honest, vulnerable, strong. You saw me, my mistakes, my intentions, and you told me the truth. Nobody does that with me. Everyone is careful around me, political. But not you. He came closer. And yes, this is fast. Yes, this is intense. But I'm not lying. This connection is real. And I don't want rumors or fear to push you away. I looked into his eyes. Steel gray but soft. Vulnerable. But Watson, I said, I'm scared. Scared that maybe you're temporary. That later when this initial attraction acanes, you'll leave. And I'm already alone. I can't afford another heartbreak. Watson took my hand gently, asking permission. When I didn't resist, he tightened his grip slightly. I'm not temporary, Franco. And I'm not leaving. I'm committed. To you. To your baby. If you'll give me a chance. His scent wrapped around me. Protective, sincere. And my omega instinct finally surrendered. Tears came to my eyes. I've been so scared. So alone. I know, Watson whispered, and he pulled me into his arms. Carefully, mindful of my baby bump. But you're not alone. Not anymore. I cried against him, all the frustration, all the fear, all the loneliness. And Watson just held me. Without judgment. When I calmed down a little, I looked at him. If I say yes. If I try something with you. You know this won't be easy, right? I'm pregnant. I'm an emotional mess. And I have baggage. Watson smiled. Soft. Genuine. Franco, nothing worthwhile is ever easy. But it's worth it. And I'm ready for everything. I took a long breath. Okay. I said. Okay. Let's try. Watson's smile grew and he kissed my forehead. Gentle, respectful. Thank you, he whispered. The moment felt suspended in time. Watson's lips on my forehead, warm and reverent. His arms around me, careful not to press against my belly. The steady rhythm of his heartbeat against my ear. For the first time in months, I felt safe. We stood like that for a while, neither of us wanting to break the moment. Finally, Watson pulled back just enough to look at me. Stay with me tonight, he said. Not like that. Just, let me take care of you. Make sure you're okay. I should have said no. It was too fast, too intimate. But exhaustion was seeping into my bones. And the thought of being alone in this hotel room, overthinking everything, was unbearable. Okay, I whispered. Watson called his assistant, and within an hour, I was moved to a suite on the executive floor. It was massive compared to my previous room, a separate bedroom, a living area with a comfortable couch, and a bathroom that felt like a spa. I'll take the couch, Watson said, setting down my bag. You take the bedroom. And Franco? No expectations. I just want you to rest. That night, I lay in the most comfortable bed I'd experienced in years, listening to the quiet sounds of Watson moving around in the living area. My hand rested on my belly, feeling the gentle movements of my baby. What was I doing? Trusting a man I'd known for 2 days, letting myself hope for something that might not last? But then I remembered the way Watson had looked at me, the immediate action he'd taken to fix the conference, the care he'd shown in every interaction. Maybe, just maybe, this was real. The next day was the final day of the conference. Watson's closing keynote was scheduled for the afternoon. The crowd was even larger than before. Press had shown up because the mid-conference restructuring had made headlines. I sat in my priority seat watching as Watson took the stage. He looked different today. More relaxed. More genuine. His eyes found mine in the crowd. Held for just a moment. Then he began. This event has been transformative for me, Watson said from the stage. Because here, I learned a crucial lesson. Policies and intentions aren't enough. Real change happens when we center lived experiences. When we listen. He paused and looked at me in the audience briefly but meaningfully. Someone reminded me that technology is only impactful when it's for everyone. And I'm committed personally and professionally to ensuring that. The applause was thunderous. I clapped too, feeling proud. After the event ended, Watson and I met on the terrace, where we'd had our first real conversation. Sunset was beginning. So, Watson said, have you thought about the job offer? Yes, I said. I accept, but on one condition. What's that? That we remain professional at work, I said, in public. I don't want people thinking I got this job through favoritism. Watson nodded. Fair enough. Professional at work. Personal, outside. Yes, I said, smiling. Watson took my hand, intertwining our fingers. You know, he said, when I first saw you, I thought you might be a challenge. But now I know you're my home. My heart filled. And you're my safety, I whispered. Under the sunset, as city lights began to glow, we started something new. A pregnant omega and a powerful alpha, both incomplete, both scarred, but together, finally complete.